I wanted to share a little observation of late that's, I think, affecting my practice quite a bit. So I've been involved in a lot of, I would say for the last 2 months, in big projects manifesting things. So feeding a fair number of people who are guests. I've been involved in that quite a bit. Communicating and being a little bit above the negotiating in purchasing Tara's land. Organizing the Western Buddhist monastic gathering, making that happen. So, and it's been compressed really into a period of time, so it's given me an opportunity to really watch my mind when things don't go the way I expect them to go. Which happens all the time. But somehow, because these were pretty compressed and maybe bigger, a little bit bigger than every day, I could really see my reaction to them, And what it boils down to, for me, is something that the Buddha, his basic teachings, we see them enumerated in the 3 characteristics. We see them enumerated when we talk about the 4 distortions of the truth of suffering, and they get condensed in the 4 seals that mark a Buddhist practice. But all conditioned phenomena are impermanent or momentary, transient. And this second one is the one I'm most talking about. All contaminated phenomena are in the nature of dukkha. The third one is all phenomena are empty and selfless, and the fourth one of the 4 seals is nirvana is peace. But it's the second one. All contaminated phenomena are in the nature of dukkha. At some point, a few weeks ago, I suddenly had this flash. If I could get this, I would be so relaxed. Life would be so easy. Why? Because I would expect it not to be. But it is this. So when we're talking about all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of dukkha, what does that mean? Contaminated by what? Contaminated by ignorance. Contaminated by a mind that is apprehending things through this veil of ignorance. And part of our problem is we expect things to go, we have expectations. We expect them to go right. Sometimes we expect them to go badly. Whatever it is, but we have an expectation. We think we know how something is going to be. And when they don't go the way, what is right? Right is my idea of what is right. Right is my expectation of how something should be. People should be this way. Things should be this way. So, when someone says they are going to do something, I expect them to do it. Not only do I expect them to do it, I expect them to do it in the way that I conceived that it was going to be done when they said they were going to do it. Or in the time frame that I conceived it would be done when they said they were going to do it. Or, it's not just people. So people say they're going to do things and they don't, or people do things they didn't say they were going to do. Maybe that's worse. But then there's also just things. Things break. The mail is slow. The guy at the office gets sick and the thing doesn't happen. All of these things. And I thought, my gosh, if I could just get all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of dukkha. So the dukkha part means they're unsatisfactory. By nature, unsatisfactory. Which does not mean you can't have happiness. Does not mean that they can't sometimes go the way you expect, even. But to grasp that any one of those things is just a maker of misery. And after this little bit of while, I'm still in process with this, but I think this is the maker of stress. It is this idea that something should be done within a time frame, arbitrarily determined by this contaminated mind. Something should be done in a certain way, arbitrarily determined by this contaminated mind. People should say, do, think, be something. I decided. This contaminated mind. And then my stress comes from going, but it didn't happen that way. Didn't happen that way. Didn't happen that way. Now what am I going to do? Didn't happen that way. Strategy, 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 strategy. Ah, no wonder. I'm tired. No wonder. So I'm really trying to practice with accepting moment by moment, this is what's happening. These are just the conditions. Not even to say this is how things are, because then I've frozen it again. As soon as I say, oh, things are just this way, then I've got another concept that I've clung on to. And I also recognize with humility that I do have a mind clouded by ignorance, and so to actually get this will require a lot more practice and a lot more realization than I have at this very moment. But it seems to me somehow going back to some very, very basic understandings about what are the causes of our suffering and how the Buddha told us. We grasp at things to be in the nature of happiness, which by nature are unsatisfactory. And just be okay with that. Not that it's depressing. I mean, that's sometimes people's response. Well, that's a depressing point of view. No, it's a realistic point of view. And to get some realism into my day-to-day life so that I don't stumble over and over on my expectations of how things should be, so that there's these multiple layers of suffering. I mean, even you have a physical illness, which we use as an example all the time. Like, okay, I'm sick. But if I think I shouldn't be sick, or I think there's something bad about people who are sick, or I think people hate people who are sick, or I think nobody's going to take care of me because I'm sick, then all these monsters, bubbles are coming out of my head that are just clouding the whole situation. But okay, I'm sick. Good enough. It's just how it is in this moment, not the way things are. It's just how it is right now. And then, in the little bit that I've been able to catch this, when I can, then I actually have a wider range of myself, my mind, some wisdom to be able to respond in the moment appropriately. Hopefully without harming others, without creating greater suffering for myself in the process. So this is just a little bit of a sharing of something that I've really been working at lately, and it has to do a lot with this idea of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance of whatever is coming moment by moment by moment, and trying to recognize the habit, it's beginningless time, of creating scenarios of how things should be, and then measuring everything that happens against my standard of should. Makes me tired just saying it. So I thought I would share it because I think it's probably not my own personal problem. It might be slightly universal. And just to recognize that we're all in this together, and that may we really be able to understand that all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of dukkha. And may that bring us greater peace and happiness as we, work to eliminate the ignorance that makes it so.